So how do you go from releasing £25,000 in equity to purchasing £192,000 investment property during a global pandemic? Well, today I'm going to show you how I did it and how this two-bed flat in Gillingham was just the start of my property journey. So back in 2021, at the age of 29, I made a bold move of releasing £25,000 from my first property, the property that I live in that you can see around me here. And I used it coupled with savings that had accumulated during the pandemic to actually purchase my property in Gillingham. I'm going to break down exactly how I made it happen. I had owned my property for about 4 years up until that point, my first property. And the decision to actually release equity didn't actually come when I did it. It came just over a year prior when I attended my first networking event. There, I met a lady that was a seasoned property investor. And when I told her I was overpaying on my mortgage, she actually was a little bit confused and asked me why I was doing it. That if I want to actually buy more properties, especially at a young age, I should leverage debt to my advantage. So she mentioned that what I should do instead is stop overpaying on my mortgage and actually release funds from my first property if it had gone up in value, and then use that to buy more. And it was after that conversation that I had with her that I decided that was the strategy that I was going to do. So at the beginning of 2021, I went to my lender and I asked for a further release. That enabled me to pull out £25,000 from the property. And although I knew £25,000 on its own wouldn't be enough to buy me a buy-to-let in the southeast of England, I knew pulling it out would enable me to actually have a strategy in place and actually use those funds for the bigger plan. Now, COVID taught us a lot about finances, especially me, and I used it as a means to save aggressively. Now, with all the restrictions, there wasn't much that we could do. Bars were closed, clubs were closed, most places and institutions were closed, which meant that there was an opportunity to save a lot of money. A lot of social events that were normally happening weren't available anymore. And it meant a lot more time indoors. So I knew this was a unique opportunity to really save and make use of it. I made a point of having a clear budget and saved a lot more than what I was saving before. I was saving every single month, putting it away into a savings account. And I knew saving aggressively and then having this equity release that I'd done earlier as well would put me in a good place to then purchase my first buy-to-let. So straight after I released equity from my property, I then went hunting for my buy-to-let. So I was looking all around the Medway area and also the Swell area here in Kent. I was looking at terrace properties initially. I was also looking at some semi-detached properties as well, but primarily I was geared towards terrace properties initially. I was viewing properties on a weekly basis. So Monday to Friday, I actually work a job. However, I use time on the weekends and even on the evenings as well when I could. Now, it actually took me up until mid-2022 when I actually caught a lucky break. Now here, a lady saw what I was doing and saw that I was actually having a little bit of difficulties finding a property. And so she introduced me to an owner of a estate agent. And after having conversations with him, he let me know of a two-bed flat that was coming up in the area. He suggested that I actually have a look at it. Now, initially, I didn't actually want to focus on leaseholds at all, which is what this was. However, I really wanted an investment property. So I looked at the two-bed flat and put in an offer. And eventually we agreed on £192,000. The reason why I liked this two-bed flat is it was in a really good area. So it was very, very close to the train station, places of work, a big hospital in the area. And when I actually looked at what the rental demand was in the area, it was a lot higher than the supply. So I knew I wouldn't struggle to fill it with a tenant as well. So when I factored all these things in, I knew it was going to be a pretty safe investment. Securing the property wasn't as simple as just having equity and savings and having the money and then buying a property. There was a lot of different variables that went into it as well. Number one was ensuring I found the right mortgage lender. So I work with a really good mortgage broker who made sure that I had the best rates and I was saving as much money as possible. And I also had to get a solicitor as well to ensure that all the legal obligations were met with the property purchase. So anytime you do a property purchase, there's always property solicitors that are going to be involved in that. Now, there was challenges as well with this property purchase. The first challenge was the solicitor that I used. Looking back on it, I could have definitely done a better job on picking good solicitors. So I actually just picked a solicitor that one person recommended. Now, what you really want is to actually have a solicitor that not only more than one person has actually used them that you may know, but then also you can see they've got good online presence, good reviews, looks pretty legitimate in terms of what you're seeing online. This can then form a good basis to actually ensure that the solicitors you use are reputable and are going to do a good job. With the solicitors I used, that wasn't the case. They took a very, very long time with answering emails, answering calls, and actually made some mistakes along the way as well. To the point that after the property purchase, I actually was able to claim back some of the money that I paid them because of the fact they didn't do a good job. Another thing that I could have definitely done better was actually understanding what the service charges were in previous years and then what they also are now and how much they've actually increased. When I was told what the service charges were going to be for that year, I wasn't really too bothered. I didn't really think that was a problem. However, looking back on it now, I could have definitely done more research because service charges that year were a lot more than the previous year. And then the service charges the next year, which I've seen, have also been greater than what they were last year. If I had known that, at least I would have considered that in my future costs. I'm highlighting these mistakes so that when you're buying your investment property, you factor in these things as well, because I want to ensure that the mistakes I made are not mistakes you're making. So that's the story of my first buy to let and ultimately what kicked off my investment property journey. Now in the next video, I'm actually going to break down the numbers. So how much rent I was charging, the mortgage costs, and the maintenance costs and everything as well. And then go into the return on investment on the capital that I deployed into the deal. So I hope you found value from this video and understood a little bit about what can be involved in buying your first investment property. So if you enjoyed this video, do give it a like. And if you did find value from this video or any other video on this channel, then do subscribe as well. And until next time, happy investing.